Everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate your support of this event. Welcome to the Minnesota House Representatives, Districts 53A and 53B, in our candidate forum. My name is Lori Steiger, and I'm the president of the Woodbury Area Chamber of Commerce. We appreciate your time and dedication to attending this event. We feel that it's our role and responsibility to provide an equal and level playing field so that our members and our businesses and our residents can understand who they're voting for this November. We will also have the City Council Forum available on October 13th. That one will not be live streamed, but all the forums will be on our website at www.woodburychamber.org. And they will be available until November 3rd. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator today, our Chair of the Government Affairs Committee, Mark Young. Mark.
Thank you, Lori. Hi, my name is Mark Young. I'm with Crossroads Properties. I'm a former Woodbury Chamber board member and the current chair of the Government Affairs Committee. It's my pleasure to be your moderator today. And to begin, I'd like to welcome the following. We have from District 53A, we've got the incumbent, Tua Zhang. We've got his opponent, William Johnston. From District 53B, we've got Stig Sandell and his opponent, Kelly Johnner Byrne. The guidelines for the format for this candidate forum are as follows. The Woodbury Area Chamber of Commerce provides a platform to allow candidates to share their positions and viewpoints. The Chamber is a neutral party in these forums and does not endorse any specific candidate. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, this event is closed to attendees, but is being live streamed on Comcast Channel 18 and will be recorded. A link to the recorded session will be on the Chamber website, and there is no fee to view this forum. Questions today were generated by the Woodbury Government Affairs Committee, as well as submitted by members at large. The candidates today will have 3 minutes for opening statements and the same time allotment by members for closing statements. Candidates will be provided the same questions to answer and will alternate who answers the question first. They will be given up to 2 minutes to respond to each question. A timekeeper, Lori in the back here, will raise her hand when they've got 30 seconds remaining. Candidates do not need to use the full time to answer the question and will be stopped when time is reached. The candidates receive these questions 30 minutes prior to the start of this forum today. We'll begin with opening statements. District 53A, Tu Zong and William Johnston will begin with opening statements. From there, we'll move to Stig Sandell and Kelly Johnner Byrne from District 53B. All
right. Well, thank you to the Woodbury Area Chamber of Commerce for having us here and making arrangements for this extraordinary situation. My name is Tu Zhang. I'm the current state representative for 53A, and I'm running re-election to go back and represent Maplewood, Woodbury, Oakdale, and Landfall. And so I'm excited to be here and looking forward to the forum today. And I hope that we can touch on some issues that some of the government affairs folks from the Woodbury Area Chamber of Commerce might have, and touch on issues that might be more important to folks in our districts. So thank you.
Thank you. William?
Also, thank you to the Woodbury Area Chamber of Commerce for facilitating this. My name is William Johnston. I live in Oakdale. I worked as a software developer for over a decade for both non- and for-profit companies. I'm presently a team lead as a software engineer for a small business in Minneapolis. When we were children, our parents were responsible for our well-being. They provided for our needs, isolated us from risk, and controlled our actions. But when we grew up, we became responsible for our own actions, just as our parents were responsible for theirs. This country was founded on this basic idea of responsibility, that you are able to take risks and suffer the consequences or reap the rewards. But ultimately, it was up to you and your freedom. Recently, our adulthood has been stripped from us as government has provided for our needs, isolated us from risk, and controlled our actions. We responded in kind by behaving like children instead of mature adults. This election and most in recent memory is essentially centered around this question of who is responsible for the adult citizens of the United States. In the countries from which our founders came, the aristocracy assumed responsibility for the people at large. But in our country, we stepped forth as independent people and created a government deriving its powers from the consent of the governed, our consent, and limited in its powers to protecting basic rights such as life, liberty, and property. Our government has usurped this authority and has trained us to ask every time there is a problem how our government is going to solve it. I am running to place this responsibility back where it belongs, in the hands of the people. To simply say that some things aren't the government's job to solve, and that it is up to each of us to decide individually how we will handle problems in our own lives. This is the soul and essence of the controversy today. Our lives and those of our children are too important to wait around for others to take care of them. Thank you.
Steve.
Mark, thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be here and have a chance to talk with Kelly and with William and with Two. The great part of a democracy is having a chance to discuss issues from a different point of view and to allow voters to make a choice and add to that conversation and discussion. Presently, I'm the representative from District 53B. That's most of Woodbury, though the northwest corner of our city is in Tujong's district. I moved to Woodbury 20 years ago after growing up in Minneapolis and teaching school in St. Paul for a long while. I have a couple of grown children who are in St. Paul and in Stillwater, and grandchildren as well. After I left college, I decided to be a teacher. Among the reasons I chose to teach was because of the thrill, I thought, of discovering new information, of asking questions and pursuing your curiosity. Looking for reasons, looking for ideas, looking for different points of view, and looking for answers. That still generates the excitement that I have for public service. I decided to run for office because I felt the same way about government and politics. Thinking about costs and benefits, thinking about questions, pursuing alternatives, talking a way to solve problems for the youngest people in our community, those of us who are working in our careers, and those of us who are near the end of our lives. I think that that's a challenge that all of us face, and one which I'm looking forward to. I know that as a Democrat, there are those who might suspect my relationships with the Chamber of Commerce, but 2 years ago when I ran for office, I said, look, I'm a Democrat. I told everybody that, but that I thought cooperation and compromise were actually the fundamental elements of a democracy. I still feel that way. I think the relationship between the business community and Democratic Party and Republican Party has to be a mutually cooperative and respectful one. This district has been served by some wonderful people, individuals who've represented part of this district or more of this district, Kathy Salzman, Pam Neary, Marcia Swales, Julie Bunn, Len Price. There are probably others as well that I've forgotten. Those people have kind of been a hall of fame of representation in the Minnesota legislature. Hope the work that I've done in the last couple of years and the work that I promise to do in the future will let me join their group. Will make me think about the importance of all the people in our district, all the people in our state, and for my own conscience as well. So Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you. Kelly?
Thank you very much, and thanks to the Chamber for putting this together. I'm Kelly Johnner Byrne, and I've lived in Woodbury for almost 25 years. I grew up in South St. Paul. I'm the daughter of a blue-collar worker, so the work ethic was definitely instilled, and I still live in the same house that I bought almost 25 years ago when I was that single corporate executive moving on to higher ground, so to speak. And I've been married for 23 years to my husband, John. My husband, John, is originally from Ireland, and he served as the Woodbury captain of the fire department and actually helped to open one of the stations on the 70 station on Woodbury Drive. So we've really called home, Woodbury's been our home for about half of my adult life. Interesting things about it is I started out in the corporate world working for a hotel company and then had to reinvent myself as an entrepreneur. And something that I found very, very welcoming was the Woodbury Chamber of Commerce and just the businesses around. I've been an entrepreneur probably all my life, but it was great to go get that experience out in the corporate world and bring that back. And I feel that that is what I would really like to share as your next state representative. So, I guess a little bit more about me is I'm a wife, mother. That is my greatest title ever. I have a 13-year-old that is actively in this whole school bit and working with, we've worked with the distance learning and the in-school option as well. I'm the founder of a nonprofit. I started that actually in 1998, and it's hit over $1 million. And that was for cancer care and cancer research at the University of Minnesota. We're St. Ambrose parishioners, And we've been there for a long time. It's a wonderful community. Actually, a long time ago, I had the opportunity to serve our community. As a former Mrs. Minnesota, I raised funds for nonprofits. I raised about $3 million for nonprofits throughout the nation, but more importantly, some right here at home. Back when the fire department needed some thermal imaging units, part of the Woodbury community got together, and there was a foundation and group that said, let's do this, and we had a very, very well-attended fundraiser. So I would like to bring that collaboration and that ability to work with all kinds of people from all different backgrounds to the state capitol. You know, it's a really challenging time. It's a challenging time for people and for parents and for businesses, and I'm ready to meet that challenge. I'm Kelly John Byrne.
Kelly. So now we'll begin with our question and answer segment here, and we'll start with Steve, and then we'll go to Kelly, and then over to 2, and then we'll end with William on question number 1. So question number 1, COVID-19 has had an effect on our economy worldwide. What steps will you take, if elected, to help businesses and residents to recover from the pandemic?
Well, it's difficult to talk about any issue of public policy these days or an issue in our private lives without thinking about the COVID and the crisis in public health. It affects our education, it affects our business community, it affects our private lives, it affects the social organizations that we deal with each day. I've been a supporter of the governor since he decided that it was necessary for the legislature to suspend our work in person at the legislature. I've been a supporter of the governor as he's taken on the authority of peacetime executive orders. I think the legislature responded quickly and efficiently with its COVID-19 legislation, immediately offering $2 million to a state agency and part of $500 million, which were distributed around the state agencies and state organizations. The governor took leadership as well in distributing the almost $2 billion that we received from the federal government. But our economy is not going to change, is not going to get back to normal until our health gets back to normal. I believe that we have to follow the directions of science. I think we have to follow the directions of scientists and of doctors and individuals who've had experience in this. Be responsible. Assume personal liberties, but our social responsibilities are even more important during a period of crisis. Wear a mask, keep your distance, wash your hands, be careful, and be respectful of others in our society. As we get back together again in January, I want to support the agencies that assume those responsibilities: the Department of Health, the Department of Education, Human Services. I want to support the leadership within our legislature, and I want to support the governor's leadership as well.
Thank you, Steve. Kelly, to you. COVID-19 has had an effect on our economy worldwide. What steps will you take, if elected, to help businesses and residents recover from the pandemic?
Absolutely. It has affected our family. It has affected our household. It's real. It's serious. Our numbers have improved. More testing is going to mean more positive cases. We really understand that. But in Woodbury, we need to reopen. We need to get businesses and the economy back on track. We have figured out, there were some swift measures by the governor. Kudos to that. But now we are on our fourth round of emergency powers, and legislators were elected to legislate. And so it's down at the Capitol, it's a tit for tat. You don't move, we don't move. I don't move, they don't move. It's just, it's nonsense, and we need to get moving. So I think one of the first things we need to do is go from crisis mode, from the sky is falling, to recovery and solutions. We know that washing your hands and masks and all of those things have been very helpful. But right now there's businesses in Woodbury that have closed. We have Friends restaurants that have closed, Dreams that have been dashed because they just couldn't hold out any longer. And though there's been some money in recovery, that's been very, very helpful and welcomed. It's time to lift some restrictions so businesses can get back to the idea of doing business. It's interesting how the mandates affect some businesses and not others. And I don't believe that it is a one-size-fits-all. And the road to recovery has got to come with some new solutions. And entrepreneurs and business have had great ingenuity in the past, and I have ultimate faith that we will in the future. But we need to start looking at something beyond crisis and look for recovery and solutions.
Thank you, Kelly. 2 to you.
Yeah, if reelected, in helping businesses and residents to recover from the pandemic, I was one of the supporters of the governor in enacting those emergency measures to deal with COVID. When it happened, seeing many different businesses, small businesses, businesses of color, that people that have questions about, what sort of guidelines that they had to work with. I really had to work really closely with the Department of Health, Department of Commerce, and trying to get those documents out. And I think giving with, the different changes that will happen going forward, I look forward to working closely with those different departments to get translations out in Hmong, in Spanish, in Somali, so that those small businesses can get the answers that they need to get answered. And, certainly helping, trying to help the schools get open again and working closely with our public health officials and our scientists to make sure that we follow the science and, keep everyone as safe as we can and don't prolong and do anything that we can to not prolong, the infection and they're talking about the second wave of, infection. So trying to help keep everyone safe. Yeah.
Too. William?
Thank you. I think we need to treat people as adults, give them the best information we have, and then let them make their own decisions instead of running our economy, telling everyone what they're going to do, when they're going to shut down, how they're going to reopen. We need to allow people to make their own decisions. We need to reopen the economy and recognize that there is a trade-off here. There is a trade-off between the economic damage of shutdowns and the measures we've taken and the human damage of the virus itself. But rather than trying to have a couple people make that decision for everyone, we need to convey that information as broadly as possible and let individuals in a free society make the decision for themselves.
Thank you. Question number 2, we'll start with 2 and we'll just make our way around the circle here. So question number 2, what are your top 3 initiatives should you win your seat?
For sure, on the top of the list, it's trying to deal with this pandemic, trying to find ways to get our government back on track, getting the schools reopened, getting businesses start up, and I think handling the pandemic would be priority number one. The second thing, last year we worked on our police reform package within the Posse Caucus, members of the legislature that are made up of people of color and indigenous background. I think we will be looking at that in working with the different police agencies, different agencies throughout the state, working with them to see what can be changed, what is working, and continue that conversation. The second thing, I'm on the taxes committee for the state and the local government and state property taxes, and so I'm looking back to get on that and making sure that look at what we can do in that area to help ensure businesses and families are able to continue on and help this economy keep it growing and revamp and revive.
Thank you. William?
Yeah, the pandemic is a key one. So trying to get the economy reopened, allow our business owners and employees to start rebuilding, to build a new, more vibrant economy than we've had. Secondly, I think school choice is a key issue for me and for everyone. We need to allow the power that competition provides to allow people to provide the best product they can at as efficiently as they can, at the lowest possible price. And we need to apply that to education, to have money follow the student wherever they go so that we can create a better education system overall. And finally, overall, I think there's way too much regulation a lot of it is just outdated or maybe was misguided in the first place, and we should take a really hard look at a lot of that and see if we can open up our economic regulation so that businesses can expand and grow and thrive.
Thank you, William. Steve, I'll repeat. What are your top 3 initiatives should you win this seat?
Well, I'm glad that there's a agreement among Republicans and Democrats at the table. I don't want to speak early for Kelly, but it is the pandemic, I think, that each of us have to deal with. Whatever our approaches, and they certainly are different here, it's an issue that we have to approach with a bipartisan, a personal, and a social responsibility. And we interpret that differently, but it certainly is my number one issue as well. I do have 3 specific issues that I guess that I would pursue. I've worked during the last 2 years on issues of education finance. We spend nearly $9 billion a year on K-12 education. We put that responsibility on the backs of low income, median income, even high income people throughout the state. That we should have a more progressive response to that, and my proposal would be to move much of that responsibility to issues of capital gains taxes and estate taxes and some commercial industrial property, protecting farmers and small business. So education finance is enormously important for me. The second is dealing with the issue of, for businesses anyway, dealing with the issue of international competition and internet commerce. At the moment, we don't collect tax on that for the state. I think that's an issue that we have to face. I think that we have to find a way to keep Minnesota businesses competitive with those international and internet businesses. And the third is a fair and equitable tax policy that all of us can benefit from and protect our environment and our water as well. I guess I'm nearly out of time, so I'll come back to some of those issues as well. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Steve. Kelly, to you, what are your top 3 initiatives should you win this?
Well, I think we have to address the issue of the pandemic and how we are going to reopen the economy more fully, safely, of course. But we need to offer some relief. And I don't believe that relief comes in the form of tax. We can't tax our way out of this problem. So in our household, when we don't have the money for something, what we look at is where there are areas that we can realistically cut or redirect funds. And I think that what we need to do is we need to look at things differently because we have not had this sort of an economy before. And this pandemic has given us a bunch of challenges, but it's also given us some opportunities. So maybe there are some opportunities that we can redirect some funds. We also need to really tighten our belts. I think that there's a lot of overspending. I would love to have our government take a look at and be part of that process, take a look at where can we actually cut some things around the edges. So to get that pandemic back on track and also to get our kids back in schools. My son is not, did not thrive. We had to go to the online, the virtual learning, but when you're 12, 13, 10, it's very difficult. We need to look at a safe and measurable way to get kids back into schools. It is affecting families. It is affecting mental health. So pandemic, schools, and taxes are my 3.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, with question number 3, we'll start with Kelly and we'll work our way back around the other way. So question number 3, in your opinion, what are the top issues facing businesses today, and how would you propose to alleviate some of those challenges?
Well, some of the top issues with business is the obvious one, and that is they are not open for business. And so if you don't have customers, you don't have business. For most people, that's pretty common sense. I think that, I'm a small business owner, and my husband is in the corporate world. So we had to tighten our belt. My husband took a pay cut, took a 10% pay cut. So our family took a 10% pay cut. And there are many families out there that have done that. So I think it's really important that we look at where we can get rid of some of the waste and the fraud and the overspending. There's a lot of programs out there that are nice to have, but there's programs that we need to have. We need to make sure that our kids are getting the education that they deserve and the parents have some choice in that.
Thank you. Steve, to you, in your opinion, what are the top issues facing businesses today, and how would you propose to alleviate some of those challenges?
Well, the top issues facing business are the same issues that are the top issues that are facing state government as well and local governments. How are we going to how are we going to balance costs and effects, costs and benefits? How are we going to balance our resources and the demands we need? I think that the issues facing businesses these days are the workforce. We need to make sure that our workforce is well educated. We need to make sure that we're responsible when we deal with environmental issues, and the relationship between government and businesses are important there as well. It's not easy to find a way these days through this public health crisis. Our infection rate now is in Minnesota about 1.3 or 1.35. It has been higher, as much as high as 1.5. New York lowered their infection rate in some neighborhoods down to 1.2. The mayor of New York opened up some of those businesses, but immediately then the infection rate spiked as well. Cooperation between state and government responsibilities are essential. It's the role of the government to try to protect and enhance the lives of individuals, and I think that we can do that through cooperation and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. William, in your opinion, what are the top issues facing businesses today, and how would you propose to alleviate some of those challenges?
Well, I would agree with Kelly on in order to be a business, you have to be open, and I think that matters tremendously. Beyond that, when I first read this question, my thought was, well, really it's the same issues that always affect businesses: liquidity, cash flow, and skilled labor. I think government can help with the former by simply staying out of the way and not taking too much of that cash. And then in terms of skilled labor, I've spoken previously about school choice and making sure that we have as efficient and effective an education system as we can. But that matters dramatically here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, William. To you.
Yeah, talking with some of the local businesses here in our community, and those that came to the Capitol to talk about some of the concerns that they have. I think an underlying issue is uncertainty. How long is this COVID going to stay? If we open up, are people willing to come and shop in our stores, in our malls? And so I think the uncertainty is an issue that many businesses have, and the consumers themselves. But what Steve said, I think trying to have partnerships, public and private partnerships, working together, having clear guidelines, and set guidelines on how we can open, and how long we can open, and I think that's how we can move forward, is with partnerships.
Thank you, too. So for question number 4, we'll start with William. William, do you support the state mandating benefits such as paid sick time and paid family leave? Or do you believe that the benefits are best left to employers and employees to negotiate?
The latter, definitely. As in a free society, people engage in these contractual decisions. Am I willing to take a job for certain pay and certain benefits, and I can negotiate with that employer to figure out what I'm willing to buy or pay for, receive in terms of benefits for the value I am providing to the business. Whenever government comes in and says, you have to provide this and that and the other thing, we've now done a couple of things. First of all, we've given a gift to the very large businesses because small businesses have a higher barrier to entry and can't as easily compete with larger businesses. And for the small businesses, that higher barrier of entry, when you're trying to start a business, but in order to hire someone, you now have to provide all of these benefits, or in order to grow, you have to provide all of these benefits. That takes a huge hit to cash flow, and it takes a huge hit to your flexibility. Maybe you're a small business, you've got a small number of employees, and you can offer unique benefits given the particular employees you have. We should allow people to have the flexibility and the responsibility of doing that. And I don't think it's the government's responsibility to decide exactly how businesses are going to recompense their employees in a free society.
Thank you, William. Tootie, over to you.
Yeah, yeah,
Want me to repeat or you got it?
I got it.
All right.
Yeah, so supporting the state mandate benefits such as paid sick time and paid family leave. Before I got in the legislature, I was a member of MAPE, a union, and, thinking back on all the benefits that we had, and I think it's something that's good for our economy, for families, for the productivity of the worker. Um, and so I was one that voted in favor of it 2 years ago. And so I think it's something that's important for our working families out here in our state, and I'm in support of it.
Supported, thank you. Kelly, over to you. I'll repeat the question. Do you support the state mandating benefits such as paid sick time and paid family leave? Or do you believe that the benefits are best left to the employers and employees to negotiate?
Well, once again, I don't think that it is a one-size-fits-all mandate that isn't going to be helpful. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I've worked in the corporate world and had some of those employee benefits, and I've been an entrepreneur, and I still am. And so I'm going to give a couple of examples of ways that it works when you allow an entrepreneur or a small business to actually benefit someone else in the community. So I have a gal that came to work with me in my business. Her name is Bree, and she needed a college internship. And so what Bree needed was experience so that she could move on to that next job. I provided that for her because I had her on as an intern, but we brought her on as an independent contractor. So I was able to pay Bree. She had the flexibility of going to school and completing her degree in marketing while she was getting that valuable real world out of the classroom experience, because it's really easy to read about something until you have to do it. Another example is a woman by the name of Kathy. Kathy was a very successful entrepreneur, in fact, owned many properties in downtown, and she sold her business, but still needed to be productive. I was able to help work with her and provide that world experience for her. She wanted to continue working. She just didn't want all of the responsibility and didn't need the benefits. So I think that employers and small businesses can choose, and those benefits that they provide their employees can be much more creative and much more valuable in the form of time off or things like that. So I think it needs to be a creative solution.
Thanks, Kelly. Steve, to you.
Sure, I think we're talking here about legislation which are usually referred to as a sick, medical and family paid leave. And I certainly support that legislation. It's not a one-size-fits-all piece of legislation. It provides a great deal of creativity and cooperation between employer and employee. But what it does is provide the security of at least 12 weeks of paid leave for an individual who, for one reason or another, is in an emergency and must leave their job. There's no better time than this to talk about the security of employment. The COVID has impacted women more than it has men, but it has impacted families uniformly. An employer responding to state legislation, which would require the employer to provide full pay for at least 12 weeks, is not onerous. It's really an insurance policy. The legislation asks the employer and the employee to contribute 0.03% of their wages to a fund. Now, for somebody making $50,000, that's $150 a year. For somebody making $20 an hour, that's $2.40. Now, I maintain that if an individual is a valued and important employee, it's certainly worth $150 a year, or perhaps $2.40 for a week of providing that individual with security. I believe it also suggests to an employer that I'm entering into a cooperative relationship with you. I value your experience, I value your hard work, and I value the fact that we have values which are coincidental. And I want to keep you here. I know that there'll be things that happen during your life, but I want you to be here and build a career. I want you to have experience and maybe go elsewhere if you want later on. For an employee, it says, look, I want to be part of this organization and I don't want to leave. I want to make sure that our relationship is beneficial, and this piece of legislation
Thank you, Steve.
is important, and I support it.
We're gonna move on. We've got one bonus question here today. So we'll start with two and make our way around. We're a little bit ahead of schedule here, so we got time for one more. Okay, do you support legislation prohibiting local governments from mandating that the private sector employer pay certain wages and benefits? Why or why not?
As a former city council member, I'm always in support of, letting local governments decide for themselves. And so I'm not really one in favor of having state government mandate for local government to do certain things where they can do themselves, because they elect their local city council members to do that for them. And so that separation is something that I don't take lightly. And so I don't think I would support legislation prohibiting local government from mandating private sector pay certain wages. Yeah.
Thanks, too.
Yeah.
William, to you.
I'm actually going to agree with two here. It is, just as it's the responsibility, or some things are left to the responsibility of individuals, and government should not be telling them what to do, like paid leave. I don't think that state government should be telling local governments what they can and can't do when things should rightly be in their purview, and I think this is an example of that. I don't think that local governments should be passing these types of regulations, but I think it is their, what's the word? Well, they're allowed to if they so choose, and businesses can leave those areas if they also so choose. That is federalism at work.
Got it. Thank you, William. Steve, I'll repeat the question. Do you support legislation prohibiting local governments from mandating that the private sector employer pay certain wages and benefits? Why or why not?
Well, Mark, I took a look at this question before we started, and I was a little puzzled by it. First of all, it refers to certain wages and benefits without being very specific. And I thought, well, government's responsibility, whether it's a city government, a county government, or a state government, federal government, is to enhance and protect the lives of individuals. And I'm not sure where this conflict comes into play. And then I thought, I think this question is asking about the prevailing wage legislation. Now, the prevailing wage legislation is a situation in which the state government recognizes that there is a prevailing wage statewide to offer to pay for specific services. Now, in some parts of the state, the prevailing local wage, or the amount of labor available and the demand for labor available allows local employers to pay a lower wage. But the state is saying in its legislation, look, there's a prevailing wage for people throughout this state, and that's the wage that should be paid. And it's not for local governments to say, well, we can get by paying that person $12 an hour, even though the prevailing wage for a drywaller in Duluth is $18 an hour or $22 an hour. So in this case, I would, first of all, I think that the issue here is kind of moot. And second of all, I think we have to be very careful about what we're talking about in this question, which is, I think, kind of arcanely phrased. So would I support legislation mandating local governments? No.
Thank you, Steve. Kelly, to you.
I wouldn't support legislation that would do that. I think that there's opportunities for people, as I used in an earlier example, for training wages, or for paid internships, and or maybe it's a pay for project kind of thing. But I think in this whole question, more regulation isn't going to help employers and potentially employees, or students, or folks that are on internships, or folks that are in a training wage. I don't believe that that's going to help them.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, now we'll move into our closing statements. And we'll begin with Kelly and make our way around the table this way. You have up to 3 minutes. You don't have to use the whole time, but up to 3 minutes to share.
Okay. Well, thanks again to the Chamber, and for those that are in the background producing all of this. Really appreciate it. It's an opportunity that we can come together and express ideas. I just want to reiterate that, you know, the reason for running is I just don't feel like we're getting anything done downtown. And I don't feel that Woodbury is represented. I don't think that our community is represented the way that we could be. I think we need to really be looking at where are our businesses going, where are schools going, and we're in obviously a different time. This is we're in the information age here with everything, all the technology that we have, but all of the technology that we have that is available cannot be an excuse or a use for the lack of human contact and communication and all of that. Something that I really would like to accomplish is to use some of those skills that I've used in the business world, in our community, in collaborating, in raising funds, in finding creative ways to pay for needed equipment. I think it's really important. I think it's important to address the issue that I'm hitting at the doors. We have seniors that are concerned about, when I go to some of the senior areas or neighborhoods, that are concerned about their Social Security taxes or their Social Security benefits being taxed. I want to look at that and learn more about that. I think that it's also important that we have safe communities. People are concerned about their safety. Businesses are concerned about their safety. And so those are issues that I think we need to address head on. But I don't think we address them head on by pointing fingers at people or by, or doing the same old, same old. I think we need to come up with some new ideas. We need some fresh blood. And I think we need some folks that can say, hey, I would like to learn more about that. I don't have every answer. And then look at what the best solutions are to move both our business community, our kids in schools, and of course, take care of our most vulnerable people out there, and that is our seniors. So I would like that opportunity to represent 53B. I hope that I will have your vote in November, and as always, I'm always available for questions. Thank you very much, everyone.
Steve, to you.
Mark, thanks, and thanks again to Kelly and William and for the Chamber for letting us get together and talk a little bit about these issues. And there certainly are differences here. If we were to talk about our values, I think our values would be consistent. We're interested in good education. We want to make sure that health is provided for all individuals. We want to make sure that this environment is protected not only locally but globally. We want to make sure that individuals who run businesses are able to do that responsibly. And they can do it with the initiative of an entrepreneur. We want to make sure, too, that the wages and benefits are fair for those who contribute their labor. I'd like to talk about Woodbury as a world city, not necessarily a world-class city or one of the world's best places to live, but a city that reaches around the world. Our population has grown over the last 20 years dramatically. And part of that growth has been in the diversity of our population. Now about 20% people of color, and if you take a look at our schools, much larger than that. The population in Woodbury reaches around the world. We want to make sure that the future of our city embraces those values and those ideas and that community. There are some things we haven't talked about today. We haven't talked about water and our dedication to the enormous importance of this precious resource. I've sponsored 3 bills over the last 2 years, and each one of those bills deals with protecting, researching, and managing our water, not only our fresh water, but our wastewater as well. Kelly mentioned public safety. I certainly agree with her on the issue of public safety. I want to dispel the information which has been circulated that I support vandalism and arson. That's just not true. I'm a enormous supporter of our police force and public safety, and I had long conversations with our director of public safety in Woodbury about it, and I think that he would vouch for that. I think compassion and leadership go hand in hand, and I think the people around the table today probably feel the same way. Where we want to put that emphasis, I guess, is up to us and up to the legislature. The legislature is a deliberative body. It doesn't act quickly. We've depended on the governor recently, I suppose, in the last 6 months to make quick decisions for us. We've been kind of slow as a legislative body to be able to do a very good job with issues of our bonding bill. It took a long while to make sure that we could even debate and do something with insulin and our prescription drugs, and the progress we made has been slow. I'm optimistic about the future. I'm optimistic about this city, and I'm optimistic about our possibility. My dedication during the next couple of years is to be a representative of my political party, my district, my state, and to pursue the ideas, goals, and conscious of my own values as well. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk with all of you today.
Thank you, Steve. William?
Thank you. Thanks to the Woodbury Area Chamber of Commerce for facilitating this forum, for Mark for moderating. I think you had an easier job than some recent debates. And Lori for timekeeping and facilitating. I'm here to offer a choice. Much of politics lately is centered around trying to figure out how the government will fix problems and, more importantly to the politicians, which party gets credit for it. I think most people are sick of this and just want to move on with their lives without all of this well-intentioned central planning getting in the way. I want to reduce regulation and build opportunity. I want government to stop trying to be everyone's parent and start trying to serve them. We've seen in our history the incredible things Minnesotans can do when they are allowed to take risks and build things. We've inherited this incredible country, built by individuals taking risks and working hard. We can try to tax our wealth, stunt our growth, and build a comfortable country with government taking all the risk out of life. Or we can grasp the incredible opportunities provided by an explosion in technology and build an ever more dynamic economy, unencumbered by a stagnated government, which is always trying to either lock down the economy into the way it is today, or worse, reshape it into whatever they feel is the best way for an economy to be designed. I want neither of these things. I want the government to stop planning and let each of you to start planning and working. Thank you for your time, and I hope that I have earned your vote.
Thank you, William. Two?
And thank you to the Woodbury Chamber of Commerce. It's a privilege to be here with Kelly, Steve, and William. And I think one of the key things that's important for the city of Woodbury in particular, is teamwork. We're the 8th largest city here in Woodbury, but we only have 3 delegates that are sent to the Capitol. And we really have to commit to teamwork, working with the city, working with each other to let our voices be heard and advocate for this community. It's been a privilege and an honor to represent our district for the past 2 years, and I'm looking to head back and to continue the work that we have been doing. We have done tremendous things in the past 2 years. We didn't not only pass our own budget, but we passed the previous budget of the previous legislature that was in there before us. And so we are one that is there to get work done, even though it may be a little bit slower than what the governor can do. But we're committed to getting the work done and representing working families here in 53A. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you, too. Now we'll have Lori Steiger, President of the Chamber, come in and share the final comments.
Excellent, thank you. A shout out to the city of Woodbury. Thank you for allowing us to use this facility. Thank you to South Washington County Telecommunications for hosting us and partnering with us. Thank you, Mark Young, for being our moderator today. And I'd just like to say thank you for all of you for your decorum, for your professionalism, and good luck on the last leg of your journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much.